If you're a director, you should know how to write a screenplay. You should, my personal point of view, you should know how to read a screenplay. You should know if a screenplay makes sense or not, which is what Del Toro did. If something didn't make sense in the script, he either tried to rewrite it, tried to get David Gore to rewrite it, or he tried to justify it with superior directing, just to make it make sense for the audience member. That's your job as a director. If it don't make sense in the script, it's not going to make sense to the audience. So you are the person who's in charge of the presentation of this movie. If it does not make sense, you have to make it make sense. That's your job. This is the industry expectation of you as a director, and this is the audience's expectation of your film. That I have found as a video editor, 10 times out of 10, if the audience just understands what's going on, even if it's kind of subconscious, if the audience just kind of gets what's going on, they will be way more into the movie than if they don't understand what's going on. Or if it's not emotionally attached, like if the action scene doesn't affect the rest of the story, then the audience is going to check out and they're going to say, well, it was too much plot or it was enough plot. And they don't even know what they're saying. They don't know what they're saying. But what they mean is that I didn't feel anything for this movie. It was a bunch of cool stuff, I guess, but I don't get what was going on. And what they mean is I'm not dialed in. I'm not emotionally into this movie. And your job as a director is to get them emotionally in. And you do have to have visual flair in an action movie. It's required, but you can decide how that visual flair looks. If you look at Bourne Identity, that is one of the movies that changed action movies from the moment it came out, because this was a dirty action movie. There was shaky cam. We had Jason Bourne using household items as weapons, which is something that they did progressively across the sequels. And the shaky cam, that kind of feeling like you're there in the action scene, it became a style that informed the Dark Knight trilogy. Okay, so that is a choice to do things that way. But when Guillermo del Toro does his very smooth anime shots, that's a choice as a director to make the movie that way. He didn't have to do that. Bourne Identity came out. He could have just copied Bourne Identity and said, well, this blade's going to be an intense, you're on the ground with it. He didn't do that. Homework. The way Del Toro approached making this movie was that he watched all of the dailies of Blade 1. And what are dailies? For those of you who don't know, dailies, as the word implies, it's the daily footage of every single shoot day. So when you shoot a scene in a movie, you shoot multiple angles, you get multiple takes, you shoot all different kinds of angles that may or may not be used by the editor. It's the editor who's going to shape the movie and make sure whatever's in it matters. But so Del Toro had this approach of, I'm going to look at every single daily so I can just absorb, what is this movie supposed to look like and feel like? What am I supposed to, what is the language of a Blade movie? And so by watching all the dailies, he got the full sense of the vision of Blade, not just watching the movie, but watching the raw footage. He got a complete sense of what they were going for stylistically. And so it's like, I can now match this style and make a Blade movie. But then, because now I know the rules of Blade and the visual idea about it, I can take the next step and say, well, as a director, I'll just take it more in the direction of anime, but still going to use the film language of Blade. So he did heavy homework in watching all that footage, just to have the mentality of a Blade movie be in his brain. When people talk about Heath Ledger and locking himself up in a room, that's what it took to have the mentality of Joker that he wanted to achieve, and it's successful. He didn't give any of his fellow cast members dead animals, but he did put himself in a room to experience loneliness. In the movie A Real Pain, it's unstated, but Kieran Culkin's character is homeless, and he's just not saying it. But me, living in San Francisco, seeing homeless people, and even meeting a guy who was kind of couch surfing a lot in his life, I saw all the hallmarks of homelessness, and I was right. And I learned later on from a friend that Kieran Culkin actually went homeless legitimately just to get where the character was coming from. So his performance was informed, an informed performance. What do they call that? An educated guess, right? Meaning you know something about what you're talking about before you make a guess. So as an actor, Kieran Culkin became informed. So when Guillermo del Toro watches all the daily footage of Blade, so he knows every single shot, every single take, every attempt to make a visual style, whether it was in the movie or not, he's making an informed decision on how to make Blade 2. But then he also brings himself into the project. He brings his own point of view. Well, I like anime and Renaissance paintings, and I would like to not lose the language of Blade, but enhance it with this approach by making it's the first Blade movie already kind of has this style. I'm going to lean in on that and make that an intentional style for the whole movie. But I'm also going to add this anime-ness to the camera angle and how it moves around the action, so that I can create a very different energy, so that it's alive, it feels fresh, and it's entertaining for me, right? And Jordan Peele talks about this. I just saw a clip from him on Instagram talking about writing Get Out. He's like, when I write, it's got to be fun for me, otherwise it's not going to be fun for the audience.